Hello there everyone. Today I'm going to show you how to make this double row beaded bracelet, and this is what mine has ended up looking like using the materials that I've used here. So you get this really nice effect of kind of two rows going down that are then connected in the middle using MiniDuos. And it's fully reversible as well, so it doesn't matter how you put it on, you don't have to worry about that. And it's going to sit a little something like that on your wrist, give a really nice effect and a nice impact. Obviously you can achieve completely different looks depending what materials that you use. And I've also then finished it off with a clasp and extended chain. And again, you can use whatever clasp you want to. So if you want to learn how to make this bracelet, then keep watching. So these are the materials that we're going to need. Now first of all, we'll need our thread, and in this case I'm working with a FireLine thread, and it's just a 4 pound. You can obviously use whatever you want to, and it also really depends on what beads you're using. You might want to use a heavier, a thicker thread or a finer one. It really depends on what you need for your beads, so there's size holes in your beads as well. And then as for the beads here, I have 4 different kinds that are all going to be incorporated into the bracelet. And first of all, I have some MiniDuos here. So that's these ones. So if you're familiar with the Super Duos, these are the mini versions, so they're smaller. And I wanted to use these because the big ones, the normal Super Duos, I thought would be a little bit too big. This colour is just a gunmetal hematite colour. It'll go nicely with the rest that I'm using as well. And here I have my large beads. These are 6mm rounds, and I'm just using faceted agate gemstone beads in a nice kind of red copper colour. And then here I have some 2mm round hematite gemstone beads, so just the small ones. And then finally I have some 3mm bicones. These are just some clear glass ones. You can obviously use whatever you want to. And then to work with here, I then have a beading needle. Again, you can use whatever size is going to fit your project. So if you have finer beads with much smaller holes, you might want to use a smaller needle as well. And then finally also, we need some materials to finish off the bracelet here. So I've got some findings. First of all, I have some wire guardians or wire protectors. So it's this little U shape or horseshoe shape. Going to finish it off nicely and professionally, and it helps secure as well, be secure against the thread. I have my lobster claw clasp, extender chain, and then my jump rings as well. You can obviously choose whatever kind of clasp that you want to. So let's get it all together and let's get started. And I've then taken a length of my FireLine here and added it onto my beading needle, and I've taken about a wingspan to a wingspan and a half. So it really depends on how long you need your bracelet to be and how much you prefer to work with. But also what I've done is I've taken quite a long length of the tail through the needle, so I kind of have a double thread running all the way down here. Obviously we're not going to be using the double thread, it's just to make it easier to work with, so shorten the length and then we can release more as we go. So I've got my thread ready, and then what I'm going to do is take a bead that I'm not using in my project, so this is just larger than the other hematite ones that I'm using, because I'm going to make a stop bead. And to do that, I'm going to then put this onto my needle, and then I'm going to get it all the way down towards the end of my thread. Not completely, I'm going to leave a bit of a tail so we can use that afterwards, both to add in the clasp as well, but also to finish it off and tie off knots and that. So leave a decent length of tail, then go through the bead again in the same direction. So I've got the tail in this way, short end, and then I'm going through the bead in the same direction, and that's what creates the stop bead. So it's not tied on there with a knot or anything, but it's going to be able to hold the other beads and stop them from falling off the end of the thread, but you can still move it up and down and get it off after we're done with it. So this is then the beginning. So I now laid out the beads that I'm going to use here. So I have my large 6mm ones, the 2mm ones that are going to go around them, and then kind of the embellishment here. There's the bicones, the clear ones, and then I have my MiniDuos. So these are kind of, the MiniDuos are going to connect the two sides together. And we're basically going to work on doing one side at a time and then connecting them as I'm doing the second one. So to start out with, we'll need to take 2 of the 6mm ones and add them onto the needle, the thread. So just take 2, thread them on. Then I'm going to let these drop all the way down to where my stop bead is. As you can see, the stop bead then stops them from falling off. It makes it just a bit easier to work with. And then we need to start the embellishment around the large beads as well. So what I'm going to do is kind of do the outside one on one side of them, and then the inside one, which is going to be the one that connects them. So first of all, I'm going to do the outside one. So I'm going to then take my 2mm hematite beads And I'm going to start out with 3, like that, and then I'm going to take one of my bicones, there we go, and then another 3 of my 2mm rounds, so that the bicone ends up in the middle of them, like that. And then we have the 2 6mm that we started out with. What we then want to do is basically take the thread, come back around the side of them, and then down through the same 2 beads that we just added in the same direction. So I'm coming through it like this, looping around the side and back up in the same direction. And then just kind of, I like as I'm pulling through to hold on to the beads. Keeps a bit more control of it, I think. Then I'm just gonna keep hold of the stop bead and then pull it tight. And then these beads, like I said, are going to be the embellishment on one side of them. And this is then just the outside. Then we need to do the same but on the other side, but here we then need to use the MiniDuos instead of the bicone. So again, I'm going to add 3 of my 2mm rounds. There, and then after the 3 2mm rounds, I'm going to take one of my MiniDuos and then another 3 of my small 2mm rounds. And again, this is so that the super duo, or the MiniDuo rather, ends up in the middle of all these beads. And then you maybe be able to imagine we need to do the same thing. So with these ones are going to sit on the other side. So it's coming up through the 6mm rounds in the same direction. We're going to kind of come around the other side, back down to the bottom again, and up through those 2 6mm rounds in the same direction once more. Keep hold of the large beads and pull all your thread all the way through. And then as you pull tight, that's going to sit on the other side just like that. Now as you're making this, you'll probably find that these kind of little embellishments that we're doing on the side are going to want to kind of flip around, but that is going to get more secure as we keep going on, because we're going to be adding more and more beads, so they are going to more sit and stay in place as we go on. But we want to just roughly make sure that they sit on each their own side. So this is the first set. So to move on now, I'm going to add 1 of my 6mm rounds. So to begin with, we started with 2. From now on, we're going to take 1 at a time, because we're kind of stepping up to the next section or next set. Let that drop all the way down like that, and then we need to do the embellishment again. So that means I'm going to start with the outside one first. It's personal preference really, I just kind of like doing it in that order. 3 of my 2mm rounds, 1 of my bicones, and then another 3 of the small 2mm rounds. If I can find the hole, there we go, and the last one. And then this one needs to go on this side. Again, it's not too crucial because like I said, they're going to flip around anyway, but I just like to try and keep them that way. But we now have 3 of the 6mm rounds, but we need to only go through 2. So I just added 1. That means if you want to count, then I'm going to go back around the side and then count down 2 of the 6mm rounds. So I'm just going from the top one, skipping over that and over the next one. So that means I'm basically going in between the first 2 that I added, back up through the same direction, and then pull all the way through while keeping hold of the large beads here. I have to just flip this over to the right side. And actually just want to get this through because it's a little bit tangled up. There we go. So it more naturally lies on the right side there. So that's the next one, beginning of that. As you can see, that's going to then kind of lay on top of the first little embellishment that we did, with that first section of the 2 6mm rounds. Then we need to do the other side of the same one here. So I'm going to add again 3 of my 2mm rounds, and then one of the MiniDuos, because this is the inside one, and then again 3 of the 2mm rounds. And then we're coming up through those 2 6mm rounds at the top of it, then go around the side again. Now I'm going to stick to this side, just to also kind of keep track of it. Go down the 2 6mm rounds, up through that second one, and then up through both of them in the same direction as all the other times, and pull your thread all the way through. And then this one is going to sit right on this side, and again you can see it's going to kind of sit on top of the previous section there. So this is what it looks like now. So you just basically want to keep doing this now for a while. So add on another 6mm round to get into your next section. Add one side first in the next top 2 6mm rounds. So always just focus on the top 2. Once you've added your next one of the 6mm rounds, add one side, add the other side, and you keep going like that. And then what you need to do is keep going until this is long enough till you reach the length you want your bracelet to be. Obviously minus whatever clasp you want to add, because remember the clasp adds some length as well, but just almost the length of your full bracelet. So I now finished the length on this side here, so I reached the length that I want it to be for now. And then what I'm just going to do is put this to the side, because what we need to do is start the other side. So for that, I'm taking a separate length of my thread, just about the same length, because like I said, we're making one half at a time kind of, and during the second half I'm going to be connecting them as well. And I've also just added on a stop bead, same as I did as the other one, and leave a nice length of tail, again to finish it off and help add in the clasp. So what we're going to do is start with the exact same way, and that's by adding 2 of our 6mm, and we're now done with the MiniDuos, so there's none left here on my mat. Get them out of the way because we're done with them for now, because like I said, they only run down through the middle of the bracelet connecting the 2 sides. So I have my 2 6mm, then we need to do the side again first. That's what I prefer to do first anyway. So I take my 3 2mm rounds, then my bicone, and then another 3. So the bicone again ends up in the middle. And on this side, because obviously this is the other side, so if you look at this that we've done already, this is going to be the left side of the bracelet, because we have the super duos, or the MiniDuos, sorry, on the right side of it. So the second row we're going to be making is on the right side. So just because of that, I'm going to then have the flourish with the bicone there is going to be on the right side of these beads, and then the super duo that we don't need to add in because it's already there, but it's still going to be added in naturally to connect the 2, is going to be on the left side. So basically the embellishment is switching sides, but I'm going to go back with the beads I've just added below the 2 6mm rounds and through them again in the same direction. And keep hold of the beads. Just getting a bit tangled up here. And then I'm just going to pull them all the way down to my stop bead, just like that. So that's now the one side. Now what we need to do, I'm just going to move this over a little bit, is as I'm then making this side where the MiniDuo's got to go, we need to connect it together as we go as well. So what I'm going to do first of all is add 3 of my 2mm rounds. And then, if you remember on this side, we then took the MiniDuo, but in this case it's already there, but on the other side that we've already made. So what we need to do is use that first one, and just use the very first of the MiniDuos. And what you have to bear in mind as well is go through it in the right direction. So if we lay this right next to it, the thread is coming out of the top of these 2 6mm rounds. Imagine it lies right there. Then on this MiniDuo, we actually have to go through that from the top downwards, to make sure that the 2 sides get lying correctly next to each other. I'm going to just pull it all the way through, all the thread, to get less chance of tangling up. And then I'm going to add another 3 2mm rounds. So again the MiniDuo ends up in the middle. and it's just like adding them on this side, except the MiniDuo is already incorporated into that side. So that's why we kind of do it in this way. Go back down from the bottom through the two 6mm rounds, all the way through them. Again, just like to keep hold of them while I'm pulling my thread all the way through. And then as I'm tightening that, you'll be able to see that's going to connect to that side we've already done with that MiniDuo in the middle. So there we go. So that's the very first little section. Now we're going to move on, do the exact same thing. So this is the beginning where we added 2 of our 6mm rounds. From now on, we're only going to be adding 1 at a time. Let that drop all the way down, sit on top of the other 2. Then we're going to add the outside flourish first. So that's 3 of the 2mm rounds, then 1 bicone, and then another 3 of the 2mm rounds. So the bicone is in the middle. And then this is where you can either pick it up if you want to, or you can leave it on your mat, wherever you're working on, where you find easiest to work with it. I'm going to go down 2 of the 6mm rounds. So remember, we're working with 2 at a time. So just go down 2 and then go back up through those 2 in the same direction with the thread. Pull it all the way through. And then tighten it nicely. So that's the outside embellishment. I like to just push my stop bead all the way up. It makes it a little bit tighter. Like that. And on the first one that we made as well, by the way, I took off the needle from that because we don't need that just yet. You can use that needle on this one if you want. And I've just left the tails on that one for now because, like I said, that's what we're going to be using to finish it off. And then, sorry, not the 6mm, then we need to do the other side of this section as well. So this is where we need to add the MiniDuo, but it's already incorporated into the other side. So I'm just going to add 3 of the 2mm rounds. Then I'm going to go through the very next MiniDuo on the braided, on the section here, on the side that we've already done. So not through the first one, because you can see we've already used that. We want to go to the next one that we haven't used yet. That's got an open hole sticking out, you could say. Pull through all the way. And then to just finish off that one, we need to add another 3 of the 2mm rounds, and always remember to do that because that connects from the MiniDuo into the main section again. And then up through the same 2 6mm rounds in the same direction. And pull it tight all the way, and then like to just lay it down and give it a nice tug. Make sure it keeps nice and tight all the way throughout. And I like to make sure I do that throughout as well as I'm adding in new beads and new 6mm rounds. Just make sure it's nice and tight so we don't get too much thread showing and it doesn't become too loose. So there we go. This is then the beginning of the other side. You just want to keep doing this all the way up so you get these nice 2 rows lying next to each other that are then connected by the MiniDuos. So just remember to go down through the MiniDuos from the top, if you're looking at it this way of course, just to make sure that you don't get the beads kind of tangled up with each other. So it all lays correctly and nice and flat as well. So just keep doing this all the way up until the other end. So I'll now continue with this side as well, all the way up. And as you can see, it now looks like this. So you get this really nice look of it. Both sides are connected in the middle there with the MiniDuos. And you have the 2 rows basically running down. So this is what it looks like now. So now what's left to do is finish off the ends. Now obviously you're going to be doing the same thing, so I'm just going to show you on one. But on the other one, you just want to make sure to obviously remove those bead stops that we added. So those stop beads there, just pull it off. That's all you got to do, because it pulls and pushes quite nicely. So pull them off. Remember to do that before you start finishing off that end there. But then we need to finish it off. So the way that I'm going to finish it off is by using the little 2mm rounds that we use throughout here as well for the ends. And this is also, I'm going to bring in my wire guardians or wire protectors, because we're going to then use those to add on our jump rings. It just saves the thread, make it less likely to break. So what we have here first of all is at the end we have 1 thread coming out from each of the 6mm rounds, the very last ones there. And those are the ones we're going to use. I'm going to start with one. I'm going to do one at a time here. Then what I'm going to do is, coming out from that 6mm, I'm going to add 9 of these little 2mm beads. And the reason that I'm doing 9 is so it's an uneven number. We're going to have a middle one that we're then going to use for the wire protector. Like that. And this is why I said at the beginning as well to leave some decent tails where we started out from the stop beads. So we have the 9, then I'm going to go from that 6mm over to the one on the other side and just go straight through that. And then I'm going to go through 2 of them like that. Pull it all the way. So we have that right there at the end. Then what we're going to do is we need to come back again, but as you can see there's nothing here to really go for. So what I'm just going to do is actually go through to the back side and then just flip this around, because that's just what matches for here. Because we're then coming out of that second 6mm round, and here we then have the connection point, so kind of the embellishment on the side. I want to come from that second one and then go through that side embellishment. So that's why I just went to the back side there, to make it easy to get to. If it's on the top, then you just stay where you are. We'll go through all those beads on the side. Now you can help pull with the other tail if it loosens up while you're doing this. So that's through all of them here. Just pull the other one tight again. And then what I'm going to do is go from that very last bead in the embellishment on the side, and then I'm going to jump straight to the 2mm bead that we added from the 6mm. So the new ones there, the first one of the 9. Just going to go straight through there. Just do a few at a time. And as you can see, it might get a bit loose still because we still haven't really fastened anything in place. But just keep pulling it tight as you're going. It tightens it up nicely. And then I'm through 3 now. What we want to do is come through the 5th one, so the very middle one. To make sure you get to that. So go through 5 beads. Then here I want to add in my wire guardian. So I'm going to take the needle that I'm working with, and then we need this to sit like that. So I'm going to go through one of the holes on the side from the bottom, like that. And then at the top, so where the kind of horseshoe is, I'm going to then come down through the hole on the other side. Then as you're pulling this, just make sure the thread is going to sit in that little well. And then pull all the way down. Then what we need to do is that 5th bead that we're coming out of, we need to go back through that same one again, just that 5th one, and then start coming through all the beads on the other side. So continue down the side there, so the remaining of the 9 that we added, all the way. And then as we pull that tight, that's going to make that wire protector sit just nicely right there in the middle, just connected to that very middle bead, so it's nice and symmetrical. And then we have now again 1 thread on each side. So now what you want to do basically is you can really choose whatever thread you want to use now. You can go back through the 6mm beads, 2 of them there, because then you can go straight through to the outside embellishment and come back up again. You can take the one from the other side as well. I would recommend make sure you use both, because obviously we need to tie off as well. But then what I'm meaning is, because what I want to do now is make sure to go back through all this again, because right now this wire protector we only have 1 thread through that. I want to make sure to have at least 2. So if I just switch over to the other one, like I said, you can switch to the other one and just do the one that you just used, go back through the same one again. Doesn't really matter. and this one is already coming out from that 6mm round bead. So all you do is go straight through these new ones that we added in again. All the way up, again into that middle bead, just like before. So the 5th one, because this is where we then need to go back through the wire protector. Again, as I'm going, I'll keep tightening up the other one as well that I'm not working with, just to try and keep it nice and tight as we go. Go through the wire protector the exact same way. Difference is now it's already attached. Down through the other side. This is just going to add more strength and security in the long term as well, make it much more durable. And then come back through that same bead down the other side, and then we're back. We've got both threads here on the same side. What I want to end up with is making sure we have one thread on each side once we've done all this work and we've attached this, because that's where we're then going to start making knots and finishing them off. So once you get through this again, so we have them both coming out the same side, we've now gone through this area twice. You just take either one of the threads, come back around up the side here, make sure you come from the side on this side as well, so you connect it to this side flourish. And then what I just want to mention as well, this very middle bead where the wire protector is connected, obviously depending on what materials that you use, but it can get a little tight. So what you can do as well, if that does happen, you can then maybe on the 3rd round actually come from the side bead, so not from the 5th one but from the 4th one, straight up the side to the wire protector, and then down in what's the 6th one then on the other side. So you basically skip that 5th one if it does end up becoming a little bit too tight. And then you come out on the other side there, whichever thread you've used, and then once you get to that point and we've done enough reinforcement here, we then need to start tightening knots. So then when you finish this area here and reinforced it, and we have one thread coming out on each side there, then we need to start tying off some knots so we can then get rid of the thread as well, make it nice and secure. So I'm just going to show you here on one side because it's going to be the same for all of it. So what I have is I've just got my thread coming out from these extra little beads I added, so I'm going to go down through my first 6mm round, just pull it through that, just like that. And then what we need to do is start tying knots in this area. Now the reason that I'm doing it here, because these are the largest beads, so we're going to be more likely to be able to hide the knots, whereas if you did it on the side, it might be that you got plenty of space in the beads you use, but I know these ones have got quite small holes left, and I'm not sure I'll be able to hide a full knot in there. So what I'm going to do is tie knots down the center there, where the 6mm rounds are on each side. And the way that I'm going to do that is we have thread running all the way down through all of those, and then we have these little gaps on each side. So I'm going to go down through one of those gaps on the one side, and make sure you go inside the embellishment between these two 6mm rounds. Don't include the next one, just through this one, and then I'm going to come up through the one on the other side, like that. So basically I've just wrapped my thread around the thread that's going in between these two 6mm rounds there, and then I'm keeping hold of a loop, so I'm not pulling this tight. So when my thread is coming out from the 6mm round, I've got this loop. I'm going to take my needle straight through that, and I want to go through it twice because I find those knots a little bit more secure. And then I'm going to just pull this, let go of the loop and pull it tight, so the knot is created right down here, and it lands right in between these two 6mm rounds. So that's the first knot. I'm then going to take my needle through the next 6mm round, just straight through it, and then also just pull it a little bit, so to try and make sure that knot ends up coming into the 6mm round. So if you pull it a bit, it'll go into there. Now I'm going to do the exact same thing. So again, here we have a space on each side of the 6mm round, so make sure you go down in this space, in the gap that's right next to the 6mm round. And again, keep hold of a loop, come up from behind on the other side. Again, make sure you go in that gap, because you don't want to be going too far into the middle, so you include these embellishments on the side. You want to make sure you come up right next to the 6mm round and pull it up, and then go through the loop that we kept hold of twice again and pull it tight. And then you just want to take your needle straight through this next 6mm round again. Pull it tight so the knot goes into that bead, and then you keep doing that all the way. So what you can either do is, if you have plenty of thread left, you can just keep going. I would recommend making quite a few knots regardless. So I would say to go about halfway if you have enough for that, because obviously we need to come from the other side as well and make knots, so just about halfway. But if you don't have enough, just make as many knots as you can to reach as close to halfway as you can as well, just to make it nice and durable. So do that, and then obviously do the same on the other side, down through the middle there with your knots. And then once you've done enough, make sure when you've done your last knot, make sure to go through another bead before you cut off your thread. And then go through that bead, cut it off, and then you've finished off all your beading here. And you have these little wire protectors that you can then use to attach your clasp with. So do that, and then, like I said, I'm going to use my jump rings to just add my clasp and my extended chain. So add that as well, whatever clasp it is you want to use, and then your bracelet will be completely finished. So there we go. I've now added my clasp as well. So my lobster claw clasp using the jump rings there, and then extended chain as well. So it gives a really nice finish, I think, nice and professional. And also this is fully reversible, so it doesn't matter what side you put it on, it will look the same either way. So this is what it looks like. It gives a really nice effect, and obviously you can achieve completely different looks depending what materials that you use. So that's how you make this. So I really hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and thank you very much for watching. Hello there everyone. Today I want to show you how to make this heart patterned beaded bracelet, and in this case I've just used gemstones because I had some that I thought would work perfectly. They're the perfect size together, and then they would make a nice colour combination here for the pattern that I wanted. It looks like this. So it's got a really nice feel to it, and it falls really nicely. And then also in the end I finished it off with multi-strand connectors here that I made myself. You can then attach extended chain